I'm Sarah Mitchell, 28 years old, and I never thought a crumpled pharmacy receipt would destroy my family. When I found that Plan B purchase dated the exact same week my sister announced her pregnancy to win back her ex-boyfriend, I faced an impossible choice. Tell the truth and watch my family implode, or stay silent and watch an innocent man get trapped by lies. What I didn't expect was discovering he already knew her secret and had been playing a game far more calculated than any of us realized. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The whole mess started 3 months ago when my sister Maya burst through my apartment door without knocking, mascara streaking down her cheeks like black rivers of desperation. At 25, Maya had perfected the art of dramatic entrances, but this felt different. Her usually pristine blonde hair hung in tangled knots, and her designer clothes looked like she had slept in them for days. "He's really leaving me this time," she sobbed, collapsing onto my couch with the theatrical flair that had defined her personality since childhood. Jake packed his bags and said he's done with all the fighting. He won't even look at me anymore. I set down my coffee and studied my sister's face, searching for genuine emotion beneath the performance. Maya and Jake had been together for 4 years, their relationship a constant cycle of passionate reunions and explosive breakups that kept our entire family on edge. Jake Rodriguez was a good man, 31 years old, with kind eyes and endless patience, but even saints have their breaking points. What happened this time? I asked, though I suspected I already knew the answer. Maya had a talent for pushing people away the moment they got too close, a defense mechanism rooted in our chaotic childhood. "Nothing happened," she insisted, her voice rising to that familiar pitch that signaled incoming manipulation. "He just decided he wants space to figure things out. But I know there's someone else. There has to be. Men don't just walk away from 4 years without a reason." The irony wasn't lost on me. Maya had been the one stepping out of their relationship for months, flirting with coworkers and staying out until dawn without explanation. Jake had confronted her about it repeatedly, his trust eroding with each unanswered text and fabricated excuse. But in Maya's world, she was always the victim, never the architect of her own disasters. "Maybe he just needs time," I offered, though my heart wasn't in the comfort. "You two have worked through worse. Time?" Maya's laugh was bitter and sharp. "Time for him to realize he's better off without me. Time for him to find some sweet little nobody who won't challenge him or make him feel anything real. I can't lose him, Sarah. I won't." The desperation in her voice sent chills down my spine. I had seen that look before, in our mother's eyes when our father threatened to leave during one of their legendary fights. It was the look of someone who would do anything, sacrifice anyone, to avoid abandonment. Over the next few days, Maya threw herself into winning Jake back with manic intensity. She showed up at his apartment with home-cooked meals, sent flowers to his office, and bombarded his phone with apologies and promises to change. But Jake had built walls that her usual tactics couldn't penetrate. He was polite but distant, accepting her gifts with tired smiles that never reached his eyes. "He's slipping away," Maya confided during one of her daily visits to my apartment. "I can feel it. Every conversation feels like goodbye." She was right. Jake had the look of a man who had already mentally moved on, going through the motions of consideration while his heart packed its bags. I had seen them together the week before at a coffee shop, Jake's attention drifting to his phone, while Maya talked animatedly about their future. The disconnect was painful to witness. Then something shifted. Maya's frantic energy transformed into a strange calm that set off every alarm bell in my head. She stopped crying, stopped showing up unannounced, and started speaking about Jake with a confidence that felt manufactured. "Everything's going to work out," she announced during Sunday dinner at our parents' house. "Jake and I are going to be fine. Better than fine, actually." Our mother, Linda, perked up at this news. At 55, she lived vicariously through Maya's romantic dramas, offering advice rooted in manipulation tactics from her own marriage playbook. "Did you two have a good talk?" "I told you honesty was the key." Maya's smile was mysterious and unsettling. "Something like that. Let's just say Jake won't be going anywhere anytime soon." The cryptic response bothered me, but I pushed the feeling aside. Maya had always been dramatic, prone to grandiose statements and mysterious proclamations. I assumed she was building up some romantic gesture or planning a grand apology that would either save their relationship or destroy it completely. 2 weeks later, Maya called me at 6 a.m, her voice trembling with what sounded like joy and terror mixed together. "Sarah, you need to come over right now. I have news." I found her pacing around her apartment like a caged animal, her hands shaking as she gestured wildly. The space looked like a hurricane had torn through it, clothes and papers scattered everywhere, empty wine bottles lined up on the kitchen counter like soldiers. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out before I had even closed the door. "Jake and I are having a baby." The words hit me like a physical blow. Maya had been adamant about not wanting children, calling them relationship killers and dream destroyers. She had broken up with 2 previous boyfriends specifically because they wanted families. The idea of her suddenly embracing motherhood felt like watching someone claim the sky was green. "Are you sure?" I managed to ask, studying her face for tells. Maya was an excellent liar, but pregnancy wasn't something you could fake for long. "Positive test? Doctor's confirmation? The whole thing," she said, though her eyes couldn't quite meet mine. Jake was shocked when I told him, but he's coming around. He actually cried when I showed him the ultrasound. Something about her tone felt off, rehearsed, like she had practiced this conversation in the mirror. But pregnancy would explain her recent mood swings and the strange confidence about her relationship. Jake was the type of man who would step up, who would sacrifice his own doubts for his child's future. "How far along are you?" I asked, trying to calculate timelines in my head. 8 weeks, Maya said quickly. "It happened right before our big fight. Ironic, right? We were falling apart just as we created something beautiful together." The timing felt convenient, almost too perfect. But Maya's tears looked real, and the fear in her voice when she talked about telling our parents seemed genuine. I pushed down my suspicions and focused on being supportive. "How are you feeling about it? Really feeling? Not what you think you should feel." Maya's composure cracked slightly. Terrified, excited, confused. I never thought I wanted this, but now that it's happening, I can't imagine my life any other way. And Jake, he's going to be such a good father. This could be exactly what we needed to fix everything between us. Over the following weeks, I watched Maya transform into the picture of expectant motherhood. She bought pregnancy books, started taking vitamins religiously, and spoke constantly about morning sickness and food cravings. Jake seemed to be adjusting to the news, though his enthusiasm felt muted, like someone trying to convince himself to be happy about winning a prize he never wanted. "He's still processing," Maya explained when I mentioned Jake's subdued reactions. "This wasn't planned, and you know how he likes to have everything mapped out. But he'll come around completely once the reality sets in." The reality was already setting in for me, and something about it felt wrong. Maya's pregnancy symptoms seemed to come and go based on her audience. Around Jake, she was constantly nauseous and exhausted. Around our parents, she glowed with maternal joy. When she thought no one was watching, she seemed perfectly normal, eating foods she claimed made her sick, and moving without any of the careful consideration pregnant women typically showed. My suspicions crystallized into certainty 3 weeks after her announcement. I had stopped by her apartment to drop off some maternity clothes our cousin had given me, using the spare key Maya had insisted I keep for emergencies. She wasn't home, but I needed to use the bathroom, and that's when I saw it. The pharmacy receipt was crumpled at the bottom of the small trash can next to her toilet, as if she had tried to bury it beneath layers of tissues and cotton swabs. The date jumped out at me immediately. The same week she had announced her pregnancy. But it wasn't prenatal vitamins or morning sickness remedies listed on that receipt. Plan B, emergency contraceptive, $149.99. Purchased at 2:15 in the afternoon, on a Tuesday, just 5 days before she told Jake about the baby. I stared at that receipt until the numbers blurred, my hands shaking as the implications crashed over me. Maya hadn't been pregnant when she told Jake the news. She had been preventing pregnancy, taking emergency contraception to make sure there would be no accidental complications to her lie. The crumpled paper felt like evidence of a crime, proof of a deception so calculated and cruel that I could barely comprehend it. Maya wasn't just lying about being pregnant, she was building an entire future on that lie, trapping Jake in a relationship he had been trying to escape. I thought about Jake's subdued reactions, the way he seemed to be forcing his enthusiasm. He was a good man trying to do the right thing, sacrificing his own happiness for a child that didn't exist. Maya was stealing his choice, his freedom, his trust, all to avoid facing the consequences of her own behavior. But she was also my sister. The same girl who had crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, who had defended me against playground bullies, who had held my hair when I was sick and driven me to the hospital when I broke my wrist. The same person who was now committing a betrayal so profound that it made my stomach turn. I folded the receipt carefully and slipped it into my pocket, not sure what I planned to do with it, but knowing I couldn't leave it behind. The weight of that small piece of paper felt enormous, like carrying around a bomb with an unknown timer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Jake's face when he found out the truth, the way his trust in love and family would shatter. I thought about the months, or even years, Maya might maintain this lie, the increasingly elaborate deceptions she would need to construct. What would she do when it came time to deliver a baby that didn't exist? How far was she willing to go? I also thought about my own complicity. By staying silent, I was enabling her deception, becoming an accessory to emotional manipulation. But by speaking up, I would be destroying my sister's last desperate attempt to save her relationship and potentially fracturing our family forever. The next morning, Maya called to invite me to lunch, bubbling with excitement about a doctor's appointment where she claimed to have heard the baby's heartbeat. Her joy sounded so genuine that I almost convinced myself I had misunderstood the receipt, that there was some innocent explanation I hadn't considered. But when we met at the restaurant, Maya's performance was flawless, but somehow hollow. She ordered carefully, claiming certain smells made her nauseous, and spoke lovingly about preparing the nursery. She showed me ultrasound pictures that looked suspiciously generic, the kind of stock images you could find online. Jake is finally getting excited, she said, scrolling through photos on her phone. Look at this crib he picked out. And he's already talking about converting his home office into a nursery. I think this baby is exactly what we needed to remember why we fell in love. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope. Maya wasn't just lying about pregnancy. She was using the fake baby to rewrite the entire narrative of their relationship, transforming Jake's reasonable decision to leave into the confused reaction of an overwhelmed, expectant father. "Have you told Mom and Dad yet?" I asked, testing how deep the deception went. "This weekend," Maya said. "I wanted to wait until the end of the first trimester, just to be safe. But everything looks perfect. The doctor says I'm the picture of health." Another lie, stacked on top of all the others. Maya hadn't seen any doctor, hadn't had any tests, hadn't received any reassurances about her non-existent pregnancy. She was constructing an entire fictional medical history to support her deception. That afternoon, I made a decision that would haunt me regardless of the outcome. I called Jake and asked if we could meet for coffee, claiming I needed advice about a work situation. He agreed immediately, probably grateful for any distraction from his complicated personal life. Jake looked tired when he arrived at the coffee shop, dark circles under his eyes and a tension in his shoulders that spoke of sleepless nights and difficult decisions. At 31, he was the kind of man women brought home to their mothers, stable and kind, with a laugh that made everyone around him feel safe. "How are you handling everything?" I asked, genuinely concerned about his well-being. "Honestly, I'm overwhelmed," he admitted, stirring his coffee with mechanical precision. "A month ago, I was planning to end things with Maya, and now we're talking about cribs and college funds. It's a lot to process. You were really planning to leave?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Jake nodded slowly. "I love your sister, I really do. But we want different things. We fight constantly. And I was starting to feel like we were just going through the motions. The pregnancy changes everything, obviously. A child deserves parents who are committed to making it work." The genuine care in his voice made my chest tight. Jake was sacrificing his own happiness for a baby that didn't exist, trapped by his own decency and Maya's manipulation. He deserved to know the truth, but telling him would destroy multiple lives, including my sister's. "Do you think you two can work through your problems?" I asked, still wrestling with my decision. "We have to," Jake said simply. "I won't be one of those fathers who abandons his family because things get complicated. Maya and I will figure it out for the baby's sake." The resignation in his voice broke my heart. Jake wasn't choosing to stay with Maya. He was accepting a prison sentence disguised as responsibility. My sister had found the one thing that could override his rational decision to leave, his moral obligation to his child. I opened my mouth to tell him the truth, to show him the receipt that would free him from Maya's trap. But the words wouldn't come. The devastation on his face would be unbearable, and the fallout would destroy our entire family. Maya might never forgive me, and our parents would be forced to choose sides in a conflict that would reshape every relationship we had. Instead, I finished my coffee and gave Jake the generic advice he was expecting, telling him that relationships took work and that becoming parents would bring new purpose to his connection with Maya. The lies tasted bitter in my mouth, that the alternative felt impossible. That night, Maya called to tell me about her dinner with Jake, practically glowing with satisfaction. "He's completely on board now," she said. "We looked at apartments with bigger bedrooms, and he even brought up the idea of getting married before the baby comes. Everything is falling into place perfectly." The word perfectly made my skin crawl. Maya was orchestrating Jake's life like a puppet master, using his love for their fictional child to manipulate every decision. She was stealing his agency while convincing herself she was saving their relationship. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked, giving her one last chance to confess and make things right. "What do you mean? Of course I want this. Jake and I are going to be amazing parents, and this baby is going to have everything we never had growing up. Love, stability, parents who choose each other every single day." The irony was staggering. Maya was building her vision of perfect family life on the most unstable foundation imaginable. A lie that would eventually collapse and take everyone down with it. But she seemed genuinely convinced that her deception was justified, that the end result would somehow validate the means. 2 weeks later, Maya announced her pregnancy to our parents during Sunday dinner, and their reaction was everything she had hoped for. Our mother cried happy tears and immediately started planning a baby shower, while our father talked about setting up college funds and teaching his grandchild to play baseball. The celebration felt like a funeral to me, watching my family invest their hearts in a fiction that would inevitably break them. Maya basked in their attention and joy, accepting congratulations and advice with the grace of someone who truly believed her own performance. "You're going to be such a wonderful aunt," our mother told me, pulling me aside after dinner. "I know you and Maya have had your ups and downs, but family is everything. This baby is going to bring us all closer together." The guilt was suffocating. My silence was allowing everyone I loved to build dreams around a lie, setting them up for a devastation that would be entirely my fault for not speaking up sooner. But the alternative still felt impossible. How do you destroy your sister's life to save her boyfriend from manipulation he might never even discover? A month into Maya's fake pregnancy, cracks started showing in her performance. She forgot which foods she had claimed made her nauseous, appeared too energetic for someone dealing with morning sickness, and made scheduling mistakes that didn't align with her supposed due date. Jake started asking subtle questions that suggested his own suspicions were growing. During a family dinner, he mentioned wanting to attend Maya's next doctor's appointment, and I watched her deflect with practiced skill, claiming her physician preferred to see patients alone during the early stages. "That seems unusual," Jake said mildly. "Most doctors encourage partner involvement from the beginning." Maya's laugh was just a bit too bright. "Dr. Williams is old-fashioned. She says there will be plenty of time for you to be involved once we're further along." The fictional Dr. Williams was becoming a recurring character in Maya's stories, a convenient authority figure who could explain away any inconsistencies in her pregnancy narrative. But Jake's skepticism was clearly growing, and I wondered how long Maya could maintain her deception under increasing scrutiny. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 days later, Jake showed up at my apartment unannounced, his face grim with determination and something that looked like relief. "We need to talk," he said, stepping into my living room without waiting for an invitation. "And I think you know what this is about." My heart stopped. Jake's tone suggested he already knew the truth, that my agonizing over whether to tell him had been pointless. The receipt in my pocket suddenly felt like it was burning through the fabric. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said weakly, though my guilty expression probably gave me away immediately. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small stack of papers, spreading them across my coffee table like evidence in a trial. Bank statements, credit card records, pharmacy receipts, all with Maya's name and dates that told a story of deception. "I hired a private investigator," he said simply. Something felt wrong from the beginning, but I wanted to believe Maya was telling the truth. I wanted to believe we were really going to be parents. The pain in his voice was devastating. Jake hadn't just discovered Maya's lie. He had been forced to actively investigate the woman he loved, turning their relationship into a criminal case study. The betrayal went beyond just the fake pregnancy, extending to the fundamental trust that makes love possible. "How long have you known?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. 2 weeks, Jake said. The investigator confirmed what I already suspected. No doctor visits, no medical records. No pregnancy. Maya bought Plan B the same week she told me about the baby, and she's been researching miscarriage symptoms online, probably planning her exit strategy. The clinical way he recited the facts made the situation even more heartbreaking. Jake had been preparing for this conversation, organizing evidence and managing his emotions like someone building a legal case rather than ending a relationship. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. Jake's smile was sad and knowing. "Because you found out too, didn't you? You've been carrying this secret, trying to decide whether to protect your sister or save me from her lies. I can see it in your face every time we're in the same room." The relief of having my burden acknowledged was overwhelming. For weeks, I had been drowning in the weight of Maya's secret, torn between loyalty and honesty. Jake's understanding felt like absolution, though I knew the real reckoning was still coming. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "End it," Jake said without hesitation. "But carefully. Maya's desperation is dangerous, and I don't want to push her into doing something that hurts herself or anyone else. I need to give her a way out that preserves some dignity." His consideration for Maya's feelings, even after discovering the depth of her deception, showed the kind of character that had made her desperate to keep him in the first place. Jake was rare, the type of man who inspired irrational behavior in people who feared losing him. "She's going to blame me," I said, finally voicing my greatest fear. "When she finds out you know, she'll assume I told you." Jake nodded grimly. "Probably. Are you prepared for that?" I wasn't prepared for any of this. The confrontation that was coming would reshape every relationship in my family, potentially destroying bonds that had taken decades to build. But staying silent had become impossible. Complicity in a deception that was harming everyone involved. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Just be there for her when this falls apart," Jake said. "Maya is going to need support, and despite everything she's done, I don't want to see her completely destroyed." His compassion was remarkable and infuriating. Even while planning to expose Maya's lies, Jake was worried about her emotional well-being, taking responsibility for problems he hadn't created. Maya had manipulated the right person, someone whose natural kindness would make him reluctant to cause her pain even when she deserved consequences. That evening, Jake confronted Maya at her apartment, armed with evidence and a prepared speech about second chances and fresh starts. I wasn't there for the initial conversation, but Maya called me within an hour, hysterical with rage and betrayal. "You told him!" she screamed into the phone, her voice so distorted by anger that I could barely understand the words. "You destroyed everything. How could you do this to me?" "Maya, I didn't say anything." I tried to explain, but she was beyond reason. "Don't lie to me." Jake knows about the Plan B, knows I was never pregnant. The only way he could know is if you told him. You were the only person who could have found out. Her assumption was logical but wrong, and trying to explain would only make things worse. Maya needed someone to blame for her collapsed house of cards, and I was the most convenient target. "You need to calm down and think about this rationally," I said, though I knew she was beyond rational thought. "Rationally?" Maya's laugh was sharp and broken. "I lost everything, Sarah. Jake left, he's keeping his apartment, and he's talking about getting a restraining order if I don't stop trying to contact him. My entire future is gone because you couldn't mind your own business." The pain in her voice was real, even if her anger was misdirected. Maya had built her entire sense of security around her relationship with Jake, and losing him felt like losing herself. But she had created this situation through her own choices, her own deceptions. "You did this to yourself," I said gently. "I never told Jake anything, but your lie was never going to work long term. Fake pregnancies have expiration dates." "Get out," Maya said, her voice suddenly cold and controlled. "Get out of my apartment and out of my life. I never want to see you again." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone and wondering if I had just lost my sister forever. The family dynamics I had feared destroying were already crumbling, casualties of Maya's desperation and my inability to prevent the inevitable disaster. Over the next few days, the fallout spread through my family like wildfire. Maya told our parents her version of events, painting me as a jealous sister who had sabotaged her relationship out of spite. She claimed I had seduced Jake, fed him lies about her pregnancy, and destroyed their chance at happiness. Our mother called me in tears, begging me to explain what had really happened. Our father was coldly disappointed, asking how I could betray my own sister during such a vulnerable time. The family dinner table that had been set to celebration just weeks before now felt like a tribunal. "Maya says you told Jake she wasn't really pregnant," our mother said during a painful phone conversation. "She says you've been undermining their relationship for months." Explaining the truth meant admitting I had kept Maya's secret for weeks, becoming complicit in her deception. It meant revealing that Maya had lied about pregnancy to manipulate Jake, destroying my parents' image of their younger daughter as an impulsive but fundamentally good person. "Maya was never pregnant," I said finally, unable to maintain the deception any longer. "She bought Plan B the same week she announced the pregnancy. Jake found out on his own by hiring an investigator." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear our mother's breathing change, processing the implications of what I had just revealed. The grandbaby she had been planning for, the future she had been dreaming about, had never existed. "That's impossible," she said weakly. "Maya showed us ultrasound pictures. She talked about morning sickness, doctor visits, baby names." "All lies," I said, hating every word. She was desperate to keep Jake from leaving, so she invented a pregnancy to trap him. The conversation that followed was one of the most difficult of my life. Our mother cycled through denial, anger, and heartbreak, struggling to reconcile the daughter she thought she knew with the person capable of such elaborate deception. Our father's reaction was quieter, but somehow more devastating, his disappointment in Maya mixing with anger at me for not preventing the disaster. "You should have told us immediately," he said during a family meeting that felt more like an intervention. This family doesn't keep secrets from each other. The irony wasn't lost on me. Our family had been built on secrets, small deceptions, and hidden resentments that we all pretended didn't exist. Maya's lie was just larger and more destructive than our usual pattern of emotional manipulation. Maya herself had disappeared, refusing to answer calls or respond to messages. Her apartment was dark when I drove by, and mutual friends reported that she had taken time off work without explanation. The sister who had always craved attention and drama had retreated into complete isolation. 2 weeks later, Jake called with news that changed everything I thought I understood about the situation. "There's something else you need to know," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Maya wasn't just lying about being pregnant. She's actually been pregnant before, and she has a child." The words didn't make sense at first. Maya had never mentioned having a baby, never shown any signs of being a mother. The idea of her keeping such a massive secret seemed impossible, even for someone capable of faking pregnancy. "What are you talking about?" I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer. "A daughter," Jake said. 3 years old, named Emma. Maya gave birth when she was 22 and gave the baby up for adoption. But the adoption was never finalized because Maya kept changing her mind about the arrangements. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Maya had been a mother this entire time, had a child living somewhere while she played house with Jake and fantasized about fictional babies. The complexity of her deception went far beyond anything I had imagined. "Where is she?" "The little girl." "With Maya's ex-boyfriend from college, David Chen. He's been raising Emma as a single father because Maya couldn't make up her mind about what she wanted. She would disappear for months, then show up demanding to see her daughter, then vanish again when parenting got difficult. The pattern sounded exactly like Maya. Her inability to commit to anything that required sustained effort or sacrifice. She wanted the fantasy of motherhood without the daily reality of raising a child. Maya's been paying child support sporadically, Jake continued. David has been trying to get her to either commit to being a mother or sign away her parental rights so he can provide stability for Emma. The fake pregnancy was probably Maya's way of practicing for the family she actually wanted. The psychological implications were staggering. Maya hadn't just been manipulating Jake. She had been living a double life, pretending to be someone who didn't want children while financially supporting a daughter she had abandoned. The fake pregnancy became a twisted attempt to have the motherhood experience she thought she deserved while avoiding the one she had actually created. "How did you find out about Emma?" I asked. "The private investigator kept digging after we broke up," Jake explained. "Maya's been using different last names, moving around frequently, trying to keep her past and present separate. David Chen has been looking for her for months because Emma has been asking questions about her mother. A 3-year-old girl somewhere was wondering where her mommy was, while Maya fabricated pregnancies to manipulate her boyfriend. The cruelty of it made my stomach turn, even as I tried to understand the psychological trauma that could drive someone to such elaborate deceptions. "What happens now?" I asked. "David Chen wants to meet with Maya to discuss Emma's future," Jake said. "He's willing to work with her if she's serious about being a mother, but he needs consistency. Emma deserves better than wondering if her mom will show up for birthdays and Christmas." The confrontation between Maya and her past was inevitable, but I dreaded the emotional explosion that would follow. Maya's entire identity was built on escaping consequences and reinventing herself whenever situations became uncomfortable. Facing her abandoned daughter would force her to confront the person she really was, beneath all the deceptions. That afternoon, I drove to Maya's apartment and found her car in the parking lot for the first time in weeks. She answered the door looking like someone who hadn't slept or eaten properly in days, her usually perfect appearance replaced by hollow eyes and unwashed hair. "What do you want?" she asked, though her voice lacked its usual venom. "To talk about Emma," I said, and watched her face crumble. Maya's breakdown was complete and devastating. She collapsed onto her couch and told me everything, the words pouring out like confessions at the end of the world. David Chen, the college boyfriend who had loved her completely. The pregnancy she had hidden until it was too late for easy solutions. The daughter she had given birth to but couldn't figure out how to love properly. "I kept thinking I would figure it out," she sobbed. That maternal instinct would kick in and I would suddenly know how to be someone's mother. That every time I looked at Emma, all I could think about was everything I was giving up, everything I would never be able to do. The honesty was brutal and heartbreaking. Maya had been trapped by a pregnancy she hadn't planned and a personality that couldn't adapt to selfless love. Instead of facing her limitations, she had run away and spent 3 years trying to become someone worthy of the family life she thought she wanted. "David deserves to know where you are," I said gently. "Emma deserves to know what happened to her mother." "I know," Maya whispered. "I've known for months that I needed to face this. The fake pregnancy with Jake was me practicing, trying to convince myself I could be the mother Emma needs. But I just kept making everything worse." The admission that her entire deception had been preparation for real motherhood added another layer of tragedy to the situation. Maya hadn't been trying to trap Jake out of pure selfishness. She had been trying to prove to herself that she could be the person her daughter needed. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Meet with David," Maya said, though her voice shook with terror. "Try to figure out what's best for Emma, even if it means admitting I'm not cut out to be anyone's mother." The conversation with David Chen took place the following week at a neutral location, a family restaurant where the presence of other people would keep emotions manageable. I drove Maya there because she was too nervous to trust herself behind the wheel, her hands shaking as she applied makeup to cover the evidence of sleepless nights. David was a quiet man in his early 30s with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone accustomed to single parenthood. He looked tired but hopeful, clutching a folder of photographs and documents that represented 3 years of raising a daughter on his own. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said, though his formality couldn't hide the underlying anger. "Emma needs to understand what happened to her mother." Maya looked like she might bolt from the restaurant, her fight-or-flight instincts warring with her desperate need to make things right. "How is she?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beautiful, smart, curious about everything," David said, opening the folder to reveal pictures of a little girl with Maya's blonde hair and David's gentle smile. "She looks like you, but she has my personality." "Thank God." The last comment was delivered without malice, but it hit Maya like a slap. David's relief that Emma hadn't inherited her mother's emotional instability was understandable, but devastating to hear. "I want to see her," Maya said, reaching toward the photographs with shaking fingers. "That depends on what you're offering," David replied, pulling the pictures back protectively. "I won't let you confuse Emma with mixed messages and disappearing acts. She's been through enough uncertainty." What followed was the most honest conversation Maya had ever had about her limitations as a mother and her genuine love for a daughter she couldn't raise. David listened with the patience of someone who had hoped for this moment while dreading it, wanting what was best for Emma even if it meant forgiving the woman who had abandoned them both. "I can't be the mother she deserves," Maya finally admitted. "I thought I could learn how, but love would be enough to make me into someone different. But I keep hurting people when I try to be something I'm not." David's expression softened slightly. "Emma doesn't need you to be perfect. She just needs you to be honest about what you can and can't give her." The arrangement they worked out was imperfect but realistic. Maya would have supervised visits with Emma, gradually building a relationship that acknowledged her role as the child's biological mother without pretending she could provide primary care. David would maintain custody while allowing Maya to be part of Emma's life in whatever capacity she could sustain. "She's going to have questions," David warned. "About where you've been, why you left, whether you love her. You need to be prepared to answer them honestly." Maya nodded, though I could see the terror in her eyes at the prospect of explaining her choices to a 3-year-old. How do you tell a child that her mother loved her but couldn't figure out how to show it in a way that didn't hurt everyone involved? The first meeting between Maya and Emma was scheduled for the following Saturday at a public park, neutral territory where a little girl could play, while the adults navigated the most complicated conversation of their prayer: lives. I offered to drive Maya there for moral support, but she insisted on going alone, needing to face her daughter without the safety net of family intervention. Maya called me afterward, crying so hard I could barely understand her words. "She's perfect, Sarah. Absolutely perfect." And she kept asking why I went away, if I was coming back, if she did something wrong. A 3-year-old thinks her mother abandoned her because she wasn't good enough. The guilt in Maya's voice was devastating. For 3 years, she had been living with the abstract concept of a daughter she had given up. Meeting Emma in person had made the consequences of her choices undeniably real, transforming theoretical regret into crushing emotional reality. What did he tell her? I asked. The truth, sort of. That Mummy had to go away for a while because she was sad and confused, but that it was never Emma's fault, that she's the most wonderful little girl in the world and deserves all the love Daddy gives her. It was probably the most honest thing Maya had ever said about her own limitations. Admitting to a child that adults sometimes make mistakes because they're sad and confused was age-appropriate without being devastating, giving Emma a framework for understanding abandonment that didn't center on her worthiness. Over the following months, Maya began the slow process of building a relationship with her daughter while working through her own psychological issues in therapy. The supervised visits gradually became more comfortable, though Maya still struggled with the reality of parenting versus her romanticized expectations. "She's so much work," Maya confided during one of our tentative reconciliation conversations. "Even for just a few hours, I'm exhausted. David makes it look easy, but he's been doing this for 3 years. I feel like I'm learning a foreign language." The admission represented real growth for Maya, acknowledging the gap between wanting to be a mother and actually doing the daily work of raising a child. Her previous deceptions had been driven by the fantasy that love alone would transform her into the person she needed to be, ignoring the practical skills and emotional maturity that effective parenting required. Meanwhile, Jake had quietly moved on with his life, though the betrayal had left lasting scars on his ability to trust romantic partners. He started dating again after several months, but his relationships remained cautious and surface level, as if he was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Maya broke something in me," he admitted during one of our occasional coffee meetings. "I keep waiting for women to reveal some hidden agenda, some elaborate lie they've been maintaining. It's not fair to them, but I can't seem to turn off the suspicion." The long-term damage of Maya's deception extended far beyond their relationship, affecting Jake's fundamental belief in human honesty and his willingness to be vulnerable with future partners. Maya had stolen more than just his freedom of choice. She had undermined his capacity for the kind of trust that makes deep love possible. Our family dynamics slowly began to heal, though the process was complicated by everyone's need to reconcile their image of Maya with the reality of her choices. Our parents struggled with guilt over missing the signs of their daughter's psychological distress, wondering if different parenting choices might have prevented her pattern of deception and abandonment. "We raised you girls to believe you could have anything you wanted," our mother said during one of our therapy sessions together. "Maybe we didn't teach you enough about accepting limitations and making difficult choices." The insight was painful but probably accurate. Maya and I had grown up believing that wanting something badly enough would make it possible, that determination and manipulation could overcome any obstacle. We hadn't learned how to gracefully accept disappointment or work within the constraints of reality. "Maya's problems go deeper than parenting mistakes," I replied. "She's been running from consequences her entire life, reinventing herself whenever situations get uncomfortable." Emma forced her to confront the fact that some choices can't be undone. 6 months after the fake pregnancy revelation, Maya made a decision that surprised everyone who knew her. She enrolled in a community college program for early childhood development, determined to understand the psychological and developmental needs of children, even if she couldn't be Emma's primary caregiver. "I want to be better," she told me over dinner at a restaurant where we were tentatively rebuilding our relationship. "Not just for Emma, but for myself. I'm tired of being the person who runs away when things get hard." The commitment represented a fundamental shift in Maya's approach to life, choosing education and self-improvement over the quick fixes and elaborate deceptions that had defined her past. She was finally accepting that becoming the person she wanted to be would require sustained effort rather than dramatic gestures. "David thinks I should consider working with other children," Maya continued. "Maybe in a daycare or preschool setting where I can learn parenting skills while helping other families. It would be a way to give back while developing my own abilities." The idea of Maya working with children seemed surreal given her history, but I could see the appeal. Caring for other people's children would allow her to practice nurturing behaviors without the intense emotional pressure of her relationship with Emma. It would also give her concrete skills and experience that could eventually benefit her own parenting. "What does your therapist think?" I asked. "That it's a healthy way to channel my desire to be nurturing without overwhelming myself with expectations I can't meet yet," Maya replied. She says, "My instinct to help children is genuine. I just need to develop the emotional regulation skills to do it effectively." The therapeutic insight revealed the core of Maya's struggles with motherhood. Her love for Emma was real, but her emotional volatility and need for immediate gratification made consistent caregiving impossible. Learning to work with multiple children in structured environments might teach her the patience and emotional stability that successful parenting required. As Maya began her educational program, David cautiously allowed her increased access to Emma, extending visits and eventually permitting overnight stays when Maya demonstrated consistent emotional stability. The little girl, now 4 years old, began to develop a genuine relationship with her biological mother, though she continued to see David as her primary parent. "Emma calls me Mama Maya," Maya told me with tears in her eyes. "Not just Mama, but Mama Maya, like she knows I'm her mother but also understands that David is her real parent. Kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for." The nickname represented a perfect compromise, acknowledging Maya's biological role, while respecting the practical reality of Emma's living situation. It allowed the child to love both adults without feeling conflicted about divided loyalties or competing claims on her affection. The arrangement also gave David the support he had been craving as a single father, finally having someone who shared his investment in Emma's well-being, even if they couldn't share daily parenting responsibilities. Maya's financial contributions became more consistent, and she began participating in decisions about Emma's education and healthcare. "It's not the family structure any of us planned," David observed during a meeting to discuss Emma's preschool options, "but it works for who we actually are, rather than who we thought we should be." His acceptance of their unconventional arrangement reflected a maturity that contrasted sharply with Maya's previous need to force relationships into traditional patterns. David had learned to prioritize Emma's needs over social expectations, creating stability through flexibility rather than rigid adherence to family norms. Meanwhile, Jake's healing process led him to an unexpected revelation that changed my understanding of the entire situation. During one of our coffee meetings, he admitted that Maya's dissection hadn't been as surprising as I had assumed. "I suspected she was lying almost immediately," he said, stirring his coffee with the mechanical precision I remembered from months before. The timing was too convenient, her symptoms were inconsistent, and she kept deflecting when I asked specific questions about her doctor visits. The admission stunned me. "If you knew she was lying, Why didn't you confront her immediately? Jake's smile was sad and knowing. Because I wanted to see how far she would go, how elaborate the deception would become, how many people she would involve, whether she would ever choose honesty over manipulation. The revelation reframed everything I thought I understood about Maya's fake pregnancy and Jake's response. He hadn't been the victim of her manipulation. He had been conducting a test of her character, giving her multiple opportunities to come clean while documenting her choices. You were gathering evidence for custody proceedings, I realized, the pieces suddenly falling into place. Not initially, Jake corrected. I didn't know about Emma when the fake pregnancy started, but once I discovered she had an actual child she had abandoned, everything changed. Maya's willingness to lie about pregnancy while neglecting her real daughter showed a pattern of behavior that courts needed to understand. The private investigator Jake had hired hadn't just been documenting Maya's deception about the fake pregnancy. He had been building a comprehensive case about her fitness as a mother to Emma. Jake's seemingly generous decision to end their relationship quietly had actually been strategic preparation for a custody battle. You're trying to get custody of Emma, I said, though it wasn't really a question. David asked for my help, Jake explained. Maya's pattern of abandonment and deception puts Emma at risk. David loves that little girl, but he doesn't have the resources to fight Maya if she decides she wants full custody. I do. The revelation that Jake was secretly supporting David's custody case against Maya added another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. Jake's seemingly charitable concern for Maya's well-being had been cover for a calculated effort to protect Emma from her mother's emotional instability. Maya doesn't know? I asked. Not yet, but she will soon. David's lawyer is filing for full legal custody next week, with my testimony about Maya's deceptive behavior as supporting evidence. The fake pregnancy demonstrates a pattern of manipulation that family courts take very seriously. The custody battle that followed was brutal and public, exposing every detail of Maya's deceptions to legal scrutiny. Her fake pregnancy became evidence of psychological instability, while her pattern of abandoning Emma was presented as proof that she couldn't provide consistent care. Maya fought the proceedings with desperate intensity, hiring her own lawyer and attempting to present herself as a reformed woman ready to embrace motherhood. But her credibility had been destroyed by months of documented lies, and her emotional volatility during court appearances only reinforced concerns about her stability. She's trying to paint me as the villain, Jake told me after a particularly difficult hearing, claiming I manipulated her into the fake pregnancy, that I drove her to desperate measures by threatening to leave. Maya's defense strategy involved blaming everyone around her for the choices she had made, presenting herself as a victim of manipulation rather than the architect of elaborate deceptions. It was classic Maya behavior, avoiding responsibility by redirecting blame onto more convenient targets. The custody hearing revealed details about Maya's life, but shocked everyone who thought they knew her. Financial records showed sporadic child support payments mixed with large expenditures on luxury items. Phone records documented months-long periods of no contact with Emma, followed by intensive attempts to reconnect. The pattern suggests someone who views parenting as optional, the family court judge observed during his final ruling. Ms. Mitchell's relationship with her daughter appears to be governed by her own emotional needs rather than the child's requirements for stability. The court awarded David full legal and physical custody of Emma, with Maya receiving supervised visitation rights that could be expanded if she demonstrated consistent involvement over time. The ruling essentially confirmed what everyone already knew, that David had been Emma's real parent from the beginning. Maya's reaction to losing custody was predictably dramatic, involving threats of appeal and accusations that everyone had conspired against her. But beneath the anger was genuine grief for the relationship with Emma that she had never quite managed to build, the motherhood that had remained forever just out of reach. "I love her," Maya sobbed during one of our conversations after the custody ruling. "I know I made mistakes, but I really do love Emma. How can love not be enough?" The question revealed the fundamental misunderstanding that had driven all of Maya's deceptions. She had confused the desire to love with the ability to provide love consistently, believing that her feelings alone should be sufficient to overcome her behavioral patterns. "Love is just the starting point," I tried to explain. "Emma needs predictability, emotional stability, someone who puts her needs ahead of their own fears and desires. Love doesn't automatically create those qualities." Maya's journey toward accepting her limitations as a mother was slow and painful, requiring her to confront the gap between her self-image and her actual capabilities. Therapy helped her understand that acknowledging limitations didn't mean giving up on growth, that she could love Emma while accepting David's role as the primary parent. "Maybe being Mama Maya is enough," she said during one of our later conversations. "Maybe trying to be more than I can handle just hurts everyone involved." The acceptance represented genuine maturity, a willingness to prioritize Emma's well-being over Maya's need to fit traditional definitions of motherhood. It was perhaps the most selfless decision Maya had ever made, choosing reality over fantasy even when it meant accepting a reduced role in her daughter's life. 2 years after the fake pregnancy revelation, Maya graduated from her early childhood development program and found work at a daycare center serving low-income families. Her enthusiasm for working with children surprised everyone, including herself, as she discovered talents for patience and nurturing that her own parenting experiences had never revealed. "I'm good at this," she told me with genuine wonder. "The kids respond to me, and I can handle their emotional needs without getting overwhelmed. Maybe I just needed to learn how to love children without the pressure of being responsible for one specific child's entire future." Working with multiple children in structured environments had taught Maya skills that individual parenting had never developed. She learned to manage her emotional reactions, maintain consistent boundaries, and provide nurturing care without the intense personal investment that had made her relationship with Emma so fraught. Her relationship with Emma gradually improved as Maya became more emotionally stable and realistic about her role. The supervised visits became genuine bonding time rather than desperate attempts to prove her worthiness as a mother, allowing both Maya and Emma to enjoy each other's company without the weight of unrealistic expectations. "She's proud of me now," Maya said after Emma's 5th birthday party, where Maya had helped with activities rather than trying to compete with David for primary caregiver status. "She tells people that Mama Maya works with lots of kids and helps them learn and grow. It feels better than trying to be something I'm not." David's acceptance of Maya's growth allowed their co-parenting relationship to evolve into something resembling friendship, united by their shared love for Emma, even as they maintained clear boundaries about responsibilities and decision-making authority. "Maya's become the aunt Emma never had," David observed. "She provides fun experiences and emotional support without the daily stress of primary parenting. It works for all of us." Jake's role in the custody proceedings had initially strained our friendship, but time revealed the wisdom of his approach. Emma's stability with David provided her with the foundation she needed to develop a healthy relationship with Maya, rather than being torn between competing claims on her loyalty. "I don't regret helping David," Jake said during one of our occasional check-ins. "Emma deserves adults who prioritize her well-being over their own emotional needs. Maya's learned to do that, but it took losing custody to teach her the lesson." The fake pregnancy that had started everything became a distant memory, overshadowed by the real family relationships that had emerged from the crisis. Maya's deception had been devastating at the time, but it had also forced everyone involved to confront unhealthy patterns and build more honest connections. "I think about that Plan B receipt sometimes," Maya admitted during our most recent conversation. "How different everything might have been if you hadn't found it, if Jake hadn't hired that investigator, if I had never been forced to face the truth about myself." The receipt that had seemed like evidence of betrayal had actually been the beginning of Maya's journey towards self-awareness and genuine growth. Her elaborate deception had contained the seeds of its own destruction, but also the possibility of rebuilding her life on more honest foundations. Our family dinners resumed gradually, though they looked different than before. Emma sometimes joined us, bringing energy and joy that reminded everyone what healthy family relationships could look like. Maya's role as the fun aunt suited her perfectly, allowing her to express her love for children without the overwhelming responsibility she had never been equipped to handle. "Emma asked me if I was sad that she doesn't live with me," Maya told us during one dinner. "I told her that families come in all different shapes, and what matters is that everyone gets what they need to be happy and safe." The explanation revealed how much Maya had grown, prioritizing Emma's emotional security over her own need to be seen as a traditional mother. She had learned to measure success by Emma's well-being rather than by external validation of her maternal role. Jake eventually found love again, with a woman who appreciated his caution and understood the scars that Maya's betrayal had left. Their relationship was built on transparency and patience, proving that trust could be rebuilt even after devastating betrayal. "I'm grateful for what happened with Maya in a weird way," Jake admitted. "It taught me to value honesty above everything else, to recognize red flags I might have ignored before. My current relationship is healthier because I learned to protect myself while still remaining open to love." The lasting impact of Maya's fake pregnancy extended far beyond the immediate crisis, reshaping how everyone involved approached relationships and family obligations. The deception had been destructive, but the forced honesty that followed had created stronger foundations for future connections. Looking back now, 3 years after finding that crumpled receipt in Maya's bathroom, I can see how the crisis served as a catalyst for growth that might never have happened otherwise. Maya learned to accept her limitations while discovering genuine talents for nurturing children. Emma gained stability with David while maintaining a loving relationship with her biological mother. Jake developed better boundaries and deeper appreciation for honest partners. Even my own relationships improved, as I learned to distinguish between loyalty and enabling, between protecting family members and allowing them to face necessary consequences. The guilt I had felt about Maya's secrets taught me that sometimes love requires difficult honesty rather than comfortable silence. "We're all better people because of what happened," Maya observed during Emma's recent 6th birthday celebration. "Not because of the lies, but because of how we chose to rebuild after the truth came out." The fake pregnancy that had seemed like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of more authentic relationships based on acceptance rather than manipulation. Maya's desperate attempt to avoid abandonment had ultimately taught her how to love without possession, how to contribute to Emma's life without controlling it. As I watched Emma blow out her birthday candles, surrounded by the unconventional but loving family that had emerged from crisis, I realized that Maya's elaborate deception had given us all something unexpected. Not the traditional family structure any of us had planned, but something more honest, and therefore more sustainable. Maya never did get pregnant again, though she sometimes talked about the possibility with a realism that would have been impossible before her journey towards self-awareness. She understood now that wanting to be a mother and being ready for motherhood were entirely different things, that love alone couldn't overcome every obstacle. Maybe someday, she would say when asked about future children, when I'm sure I can be the mother a child deserves, not just the mother I want to be. The distinction revealed everything Maya had learned about the difference between fantasy and reality, between good intentions and actual capability. Her fake pregnancy had been built on the assumption that desire would automatically translate into ability, that love would transform her into someone she wasn't ready to become. The real pregnancy that had started everything, Emma's conception and Maya's subsequent flight from responsibility, had taught everyone involved that parenting required more than biological connection or emotional call. Attachment. Emma thrived with David because he provided consistency and stability, qualities that couldn't be manufactured through force of will or romantic idealization. "I'm proud of the family we've created," David said during Emma's birthday celebration, gesturing toward the assembled group of adults who had learned to prioritize a child's needs over their own complicated histories. "It's not traditional, but it works because everyone knows their role and respects the boundaries." Maya's place in that family structure was hard-won and carefully maintained, built on demonstrated reliability rather than assumed rights. She had earned her position as Mama Maya through consistent behavior and emotional growth, proving that people could change when they faced the consequences of their choices. The fake pregnancy receipt that had started my part in this story was long gone, thrown away after serving its purpose as catalyst for necessary change. But the lessons it had taught about honesty, manipulation, and the complexity of family love continued to shape how we all approached relationships. Maya's story wasn't over. Her journey toward becoming the person she wanted to be was ongoing and imperfect. But she had learned to measure progress differently, to find satisfaction in small victories rather than demanding dramatic transformations. She was finally living in reality rather than in the elaborate fantasies that had driven her previous deceptions. "I'm enough," Maya said simply when asked about her current happiness. "Not perfect, not everything I once thought I needed to be, but enough for the life I actually have rather than the life I used to dream about." The acceptance represented a hard-won peace with limitations and possibilities, with the difference between who we want to be and who we can realistically become. Maya's fake pregnancy had been an attempt to force reality to match her desires, but real growth had come from learning to find fulfillment within actual constraints. As Emma grew older and began asking more sophisticated questions about her family structure, she seemed to understand intuitively that love came in many forms and that adults sometimes needed time to learn how to express it properly. Her acceptance of Mama Maya's role didn't diminish her bond with her father, or create confusion about who provided her primary care. "Mama Maya makes me laugh," Emma explained to a friend during a playground conversation I overheard. "And Daddy takes care of me every day. They both love me, just in different ways." The child's wisdom about complex family dynamics was remarkable, suggesting that honesty about relationships, even imperfect ones, created more security than elaborate deceptions designed to protect children from uncomfortable truths. Maya's fake pregnancy had been motivated by terror of abandonment and loss, but the real relationships that emerged from its collapse were built on acceptance of limitation and change. Emma would grow up understanding that love didn't require possession, that people could care for each other without claiming ownership of each other's lives. The story that had begun with manipulation and deception had evolved into something more hopeful, proof that people could learn from their mistakes and build better relationships on the foundations of their failures. Maya's journey from fake pregnancy to genuine contribution to Emma's life had taken 3 years of sustained effort, but the result was worth the struggle. Standing in David's backyard, watching Emma play with the other children at her birthday party while Maya supervised games with patient enthusiasm, I felt grateful for the crisis that had forced us all to confront uncomfortable truths. The fake pregnancy had been a catalyst for growth that might never have happened if Maya's deceptions had been successful. We were all better people because we had been forced to choose between comfortable lies and difficult honesty, between enabling dysfunction and supporting real change. Maya's elaborate manipulation had ultimately failed, but her willingness to learn from failure had created something more valuable than the fantasy she had originally pursued. The crumpled receipt that had changed everything was forgotten now, but its impact continued to ripple through our lives in positive ways. Maya had learned to be honest about her limitations while discovering genuine strengths. Emma had gained a stable foundation with David while maintaining a loving connection with her biological mother. And I had learned that protecting people sometimes meant refusing to keep their secrets. The fake pregnancy story that had threatened to destroy my family had instead taught us how to love each other more authentically, accepting reality while working toward growth, rather than demanding immediate transformation. It was a better ending than any of us had imagined possible during the crisis, proof that people could change when they were finally ready to face the truth about themselves.